Hello, everyone, and very warm welcome to our videocast Beyond Books and Blogs, Inspiring CX Stories. As you're all aware, we run this videocast to basically reach out to CX and customer journey mapping practitioners around the world and to get them to share their experiences of how they're using journey mapping, how they've uh, developed deeper relations or a deeper understanding with their customers using journey mapping, what their story is, how they've benefited from them, and so today we have someone with us, Rakesh. Rakesh, thank you so much for joining us. Rakesh
Pleasure, Gulab.
Kasturi is mashallah. I think I would say that you're a really inspiring person because you're actually using a lot of journey mapping for us. You're using a lot of journey mapping in the space of user experience, and that's actually an area where we want to tie the overall end-to-end journey maps with the user experience and
Mhm.
kind of make it human-centric experience, whether it's the customer, the user, the vendor, whoever it is. And so I leave it to you, Rakesh, if you can just introduce yourself
Sure.
briefly, and then we'll carry on.
Hey, everybody. Thanks a lot for the invitation, Gulam. It's been amazing interacting with you the past few weeks and also learning everything about what you're doing with customer journey mapping. I feel it's super important. And a little bit about me. So, as Gulam said, my name is Rakesh. I'm based in Berlin. So, I run a small innovation agency called Sprint Doctor, where we help teams and people get aligned very quickly and convert and transform their ideas into reality. So this reality could mean products, services, campaigns, you name it, could be anything. And it's very interesting to see how people actually progress from having something very abstract and to constructing a very concrete and tangible version of it in a very short time. And for this, one of the very foundational methods that I use is the Google Design Sprint method. And that's why it's called also Sprint Doctor, because we enjoy applying this method in different contexts and to solve wicked problems, which are very complex. And we hope to move people to doing constructive, real work instead of busy work very quickly.
Okay, fantastic. So Rakesh, in all of that, um, what I'd like to ask you is that how did you how do you use mapping in all of that, and why do you use mapping in all of that?
Mhm. So mapping is an integral part of my work with clients because coming from my background of facilitation over the past 10 years, I would say mapping is probably the easiest way to get a set of people together on the same page. And to do that, they get visual information. They are mapping the process together, and everyone gets on the same level of understanding, the same level of information, and they also see visually what's possible or what's not possible. So, and this works in almost every level, whether I'm working with CEOs or with smaller teams. It doesn't matter. Mapping simply makes life easier.
Okay, and would you say that's any kind of mapping or in particular journey mapping?
So the simplest form, I would say, my favorite way of introducing mapping to teams is the making toast exercise by Tom Wujek from Autodesk. It's
Hmm.
very simple because you can get people together and say, hey, each one of you individually draw your version of making toast, and let's see what it looks like. And it doesn't matter which field you are in, industry or sector. Everyone pretty much knows how to make toast and they draw their own version of it. And once a team does this together, starting individually, then graduating to post-its, and then doing it together as a team, this is probably where the magic happens, where they see that, okay, individual perspectives matter, the group model is more valuable than individual models, and they really learn a lot from this exercise. So this is usually what I use to activate teams and to get them to see the value of mapping. And from here, we progress into mapping their businesses. So
Okay.
what does it look like when we map your business? Where does it start? Where does it end? Let's just define the beginning and the end points, and then the different stakeholders, and let's start from the end. So this is something that I do, and it's very simple. Also, you don't have to be very knowledgeable in different mapping methodologies or something. This gets them thinking, okay, what are the different stages through which my business goes, or through which a customer accesses my business? So I would say this is the simplest form of a customer journey map.
Okay, great. So, Rakesh, I understand that we've changed the format of this show a little bit, and so
Okay.
what we're doing recently, what we're asking our guests is if they can come in with a journey map that they've
Mhm.
either made or used or done at a client, obviously without names, whatever they're comfortable with, to kind of
Mhm.
walk people through how they went about developing that journey map, and then how, whether it was in the team setting, individual setting, however that map was developed,
Mhm.
the kind of research that goes into that map,
Yeah.
the beginning, kind of the whole cycle, and how they developed it, how they're using it, how they intend to use it, and what
Mhm.
kind of benefits have they realized from doing that mapping activity. A lot of the
Yeah.
time, I understand that it's not just the map, the visual, which is powerful, that can be
Yeah.
used in different ways, of course, but it's the
Mhm.
actual mapping exercise itself as well.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it would be great if you have a map, I can perhaps ask you to share that with us and make you the presenter, and you can walk us through that, and I'll keep
Sure.
asking my inane questions in between.
Yeah, please. Love your questions.
Okay, so I'll do that. I'll go ahead and
Yeah.
make you the presenter.
Yeah.
Um, I think the option should be with you shortly.
Yeah. I got it. And I think it's sharing um, the user journey that I have there. So a
Oh yeah.
little bit of background. So my friend Matt Stewart and I, we've been working on the startup idea for almost a year, which is called Live Sprint. So with the Live
Okay.
Sprint, we want to get people unstuck from their career challenges in a virtual, safe, and supportive space. And we do this by using tools that exist right now, like Zoom and a digital whiteboard called Mural.
Mm-hmm.
And what really happens is people sign up for 3 sessions. They do a virtual workshop in three sessions. They use the virtual whiteboard to write post-it notes, to move things around, to vote on ideas, etc. And after the 3 sessions, they actually have a support phase where we help them implement the actions that they have chosen to do. So people can come in with something that they're stuck with. For example, they're transitioning from one industry to another, or they're looking for purpose in their careers, or it could also be a very early stage idea that they have, or
Mm-hmm.
even some things that they always wanted to do, like saying, hey, I always wanted to do this writing course, but never really managed to do it. Or I always wanted to do a podcast, but never really managed to do it. So that's the story behind LiveSprint.
Okay.
And we started doing user research by just mainly talking to friends around us, because the problem came from our friend circle where they were telling us, look, there's just too many options and it's hard to choose. Or I'm really stuck in this job and I need to be here, but at the same time, I know I need to get out. What do I do? So it was mainly people around us who were telling us these things, and we were having deeper conversations. And we started by doing in-person workshops. And from the in-person workshops, we also started doing user interviews to ask people, okay, can you tell us a little bit more how this experience was for you? What can we improve? What can we change, etc.
Mm.
So the user research goes in parallel with idea testing together.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
so let me briefly explain what how this journey looks like. On the left, you have the customer journey, uh, the details. So there are mainly three swim lanes, three horizontal swim lanes that you see. So the top one is
Yeah.
the customer journey, a
Okay.
little bit of details, and a couple of to-dos and to-be done issues that we have in the pink post-its below.
Okay.
I think the biggest difference would be, I think this is something you relate to very well, Gulam, also. is that
Yeah.
the customer experience and the user experience. Where does it start?
Mm.
Where does it stop? And where does the
Mhm.
user experience start?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So I
So,
mean,
yeah, go for it.
sorry. So yeah, we always have that debate, especially. I mean, there's so many different use cases of journey mapping.
Yeah.
There's a context when you're trying to help a business. There's a context when you're trying to help an individual. There's
Mhm.
a and then the business can have customers as well as users, and
Yeah.
then there's a whole lot of jargon stuff going on as well. The
Yeah.
UX people always say, okay, let's just call them users always,
Yeah.
and the CX people say they're customers, and then some of them could be users as well.
Yeah.
Uh, so it's an interesting space actually, and I think that there's no right or wrong in it. It's just about context, what one is trying to achieve,
Yes.
and there might be areas where, for example, some businesses do have CX and UX teams, but I think let's let's get into a little more of the micro of this journey map, and then we'll probably come back to some of those questions as we
Sure.
move along. One question I wanted to ask before
Yeah.
before we go into this:
Yeah.
is this some tool that you've made this journey map on, or did you make it and post it together with your partner and then put it into a digital version?
No, this was made by Matt on Figma. So
Okay,
it's
okay.
a very simple design tool, and
Hmm.
yeah,
Looks great.
we started actually analog, and we just mapped out on the wall very quickly, and
Hmm.
transitioned to digital because he's more comfortable with digital, and then we can share and collaborate together
Yeah.
on the same interface. So.
Okay, no, great, great. Okay. So, sorry, you were going to say something about where this particular map is starting from.
So the starting point, according to, I mean, this is a little bit old also, so we have changed things a lot since then. But the
Mm,
starting point at that version of it was when people would see an Eventbrite link from which they could get a seat, they could purchase a ticket to
mm.
visit the live sprint. So that was
Okay.
the first point of entry.
Mm.
Looking back, actually, the first point of entry should actually have been a LinkedIn post, because the LinkedIn post is what has the Eventbrite link embedded.
Yeah, I've been motivated by that LinkedIn, by your recent LinkedIn post myself as well, and I think I'll
Yeah,
join one of the sessions at some point.
yeah, sure
Well,
thing.
there is always some challenge that you're facing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Always.
So, or stuck all the time. So when you start with clicking purchase, what you do is once you've got your ticket, you automatically receive a confirmation email from Eventbrite. And apart from that, you receive another onboarding email with the links to Zoom and Mural and a little bit of instruction to say, okay, this is what's going to happen. And it serves two purposes. One is it gives you the right links. And number two, it also serves as a nice reminder just a day before the sprint so that you don't forget it. So our feeling is that that's sort of the point where, all the initial stuff ends,
Okay.
and then once the sprint starts, you have participants entering Mural and Zoom. So after they enter the interface, we give an introduction as the facilitators. We say, hey, welcome, these are the guidelines, etc. And then you have sprinters who are participants telling us about their stuck areas, wherever they are stuck.
Okay.
And after that, we progress to a short warm-up exercise where we're asking people, hey, if you had just €5 or lesser, what are some creative ways in which you can invest this in your career development? Because
Mm,
people always think about other things, they always think about a lot of different things, but they don't think of themselves. They don't think of
mm.
saying, okay, how can I invest a little bit into myself? And this is like a small thing to get them thinking, and at the same time it also serves as a way to get more friendlier with the Mural interface.
Mm.
So
Okay.
from there, after we have done that, so the first session of the life sprint is all about visioning. So how can you craft a vision for yourself, being aware of wherever you're stuck in? So we start with this visualization exercise, which is a guided meditation. And since it's a remote thing, we also tell people that, look, it might sound a little weird, or you might feel a bit weird because you're sitting somewhere, I don't know, in Australia, and I'm sitting here in Berlin, and we're just closing our eyes. It might sound a bit weird, but the whole point is to, get those internal mental visuals and mental pictures going. So
Okay.
that's the next point.
Mm,
And from there, we go to what we call the Magic Future Board, which is a very simple tool to remove the clutter in your head. So all these to-do things that you feel like doing for your career, you just
mm,
put it down on this Magic Future Board and you organize it. And from there, in order to get focus, you just pick two. You pick two
mm,
post-its or two things that you really want to work on. And after that, they get a small homework exercise where they really have to speak to another buddy, another participant in the same program, and they both have to interview each other to ask what the deeper purpose of these two chosen ideas are. So that's
okay.
where the first session closes.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that we have this break of we give a day so that people need the time to do these one-on-one interviews,
Mm-hmm.
and they come back for the session the day after. So if you imagine the first session happens on a Monday, we have Tuesday, a day in between for them to do the interviews, and they come back to the third session, to the second session, sorry, on Wednesday. And once they come back on Wednesday, we want them to share what happened in the interview day before. So tell us a little bit of what happened, and can we narrow that goal a little bit more further and say, let's focus on one particular goal that you want to
Mm,
really work on. And
okay.
from there, we ask them to identify all the different barriers and helpers that they might have in
Mm,
achieving this goal. That's barriers and helpers. Another thing that I forgot to mention was we always have a sort of a small indication of how much time this particular exercise is going to take. So that's
mm-hmm.
what we always try to write down the time limits there so that everyone knows. And from the obstacles and helpers, we ask them to share just the obstacles or the barriers, because most people, they imagine they're stuck with their own barriers, but when you see the barriers that another person is experiencing, it's more reassuring.
Mm,
And you feel that, okay, if this person has gone through it and found a way around it, maybe I can also. So it
mm,
goes a
mm,
long way in giving you a lot more confidence. And after they've shared the barriers, they need to craft a how might I question out of this. So this is the most interesting part of the exercise, which is all about reframing, where if you have a barrier, your mind is very closed. You're just thinking about more problems, more issues, more frustrations around this barrier. But
mm-hmm.
if you reframe it into a question, you become more open and you start thinking about, okay, what are different creative answers to this question? And
Mm,
if you keep asking your brain this question, neurologically, it's also been proven that at some point your brain just starts giving out answers, and you don't even have to try. So
mm,
it's very easy to do that. And once you have the how might I question, we ask participants to go into homework mode again to say, hey, go look for interesting ideas. Talk to
okay.
your friends, talk to your family. I don't know, if you're taking a shower, think about some interesting ideas, because the
Always
best
happens.
ideas also, yeah, always happens,
It's like
right? Everyone,
depending on the head of the water.
exactly. How close you're to the shower. And once we do that, so we again give them some time and space for research. It's usually a day or half a day. When they go back, try to create all these ideas and come back for the last remote session. So in the third or last session, they come back and share their ideas again. So we go a little bit more into ideation to see, can we expand or build on the existing ideas that they have done,
Mm-hmm.
and finally try to storyboard it into a sort of action plan where they break it down into concrete actions that they're going to take for the next 3 weeks. And
Okay.
this is always with respect to a certain career goal that they want to achieve. And we
Mm,
also help them define some metrics with which how they can measure these goals. Like, for example, let's say it's about finding out if a new industry is an industry they're supposed to go into. they can measure this by the number of conversations they have with a lot of people. So we
Mm.
tell them this is a really good metric, try this metric, or let's find other metrics that really make sense. So it's not
Mm.
just about achieving this goal, but it's also
Mm.
about how much progress are you making on this particular goal.
Right. Right.
So then it's all about going into action mode. So we actually ask them to take that first action. So take 10 minutes. What is the smallest thing that you can actually do before we close this session? And that also gives a lot of momentum to people because you really start, and everyone then
Mm.
shares what is this one thing that they did and how they're going to reward themselves.
Mm.
So action and reward go a long way. And we do a reflection session to just ask, okay, how was the session? Can you give us feedback? Where can we improve? And how can we help grow this product? So after the sprint, we have a support phase of 3 weeks. So we usually welcome them into the support phase, and we have weekly check-ins. So every week there
Mm-hmm.
is a check-in that's happening with people to see, okay, how are you doing? What's happening? Did you really hit your goals? Or if you didn't, how can we help you there? And people also give feedback to each other on everything that they're doing. And you finally wrap up. We offer a final check-in call after the 3 weeks to see where people are. So that's roughly the
That's
entire journey.
great. So these are all actually it sounds very motivating, by the way.
Nice.
The actual process itself.
Yeah, it is.
But I wanted to flip it around and ask, okay, so now from a journey perspective, from a customer
Yeah,
journey perspective, you kind of designed the steps that you want the customers or the participants to go through, right?
yeah, yeah.
So, what is their take on how they feel about these steps? So,
Hmm.
from their perspective, how do they see going through these steps? Because
Hmm.
one of the kind of principles that we always try to drive at
Yeah,
is that you might have a certain view of how you want to deliver something,
yeah.
but then when you flip it and you say, okay, Mr. Customer, how are you going through this? Where are your bottlenecks in this? How do you kind of
Yes,
filter that into this journey view?
yes. So there, I think it's this last swim lane here a little bit. We've tried to capture a few reactions there of people. Um,
Okay.
and this is a living, breathing document. It's constantly changing and evolving. And what we
Mm.
are also looking to add is at each of these stages, what are people feeling? What are the actions
Mm-hmm.
that they're doing? What could
Mm-hmm.
be potential pain points? Like, for example, we discovered that one big pain point is that this link isn't working, or Zoom is not working, or Mural isn't
Mm.
working. This is something we encounter time and again. So what
Mm.
we have now done after seeing this is we put in like a small test before the first call starts. We tell people to show up 10 minutes before, and we try to have this 15 minutes or 10 minutes of buffer time just for tech issues.
Mm.
But
Okay.
sometimes even that goes out of hand because since this is a remote
Just happened
workshop,
with us half an hour
yeah,
ago.
exactly. It happened with us, and it happens with everyone because sometimes our participants are sitting in Zimbabwe, or they're sitting in Seoul, or they're sitting in Alaska or elsewhere, and we don't know how the internet there is. And so we're just hoping for the best, and we've managed to, find the right mix of tools. And we're still looking to improve on that. So yeah, that's a pain point. It's always like that. And in terms of
Hmm.
emotions, like when they're first starting, it's a room of strangers basically. They don't know each other, right?
Yeah.
So it is a little
Yeah.
awkward. So we try to reduce the awkwardness, make sure that people feel comfortable, make sure that people feel okay to share, because this is something very personal. They're going to share their personal career challenges, and
Yeah.
we need
It's
to feel
true.
comfortable doing that. So
Mm.
there, we're always checking to see, are we setting the right emotional tone? Are we making it comfortable enough? Are we making it friendly enough? And are we giving enough time for people to actually adapt to this new environment? And
Mm.
those are things that we're also constantly recording to see, okay, how is it improving, or how is it not improving? So here we have tried to capture a few moments where we felt it could be awkward, and
Mm.
we try to validate it with the customers to see, okay, is it the same point, or has it changed over time? Until now, we keep seeing that it's always more or less these points,
Mm-hmm.
because when you have to explain the homework, then you also need to get communicating with this other person. You need to start setting up a call, and for that, we already tried to set up a WhatsApp group where everyone is present in that group, so it reduces the awkwardness a little bit more. But once
Okay.
after they come back from the first interview session, they're really well connected, because most of them have had very good conversations. And here we give them instructions on saying, look, just don't spend too much time, just have 20 to 30 minutes. It shouldn't go beyond that. But they end up having an hour-long conversation because
Mm-hmm.
they're really digging into it, right? It goes very deep. And that creates a bonding moment. So
Mm-hmm.
it's these moments that we are constantly watching out for and trying to ask ourselves, how can we create more of these aha moments for our customers? How can we ensure that they're happening in the journey along the whole process?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we constantly validate them to see, okay, is it
Right.
really happening or are we imagining it?
So Rakesh, then is
Yeah.
this something that this document? It's great. So now, I mean, basically, what you've done is you've said, listen, we started out with a designed process that we want to deliver, that we want our customers to walk through,
Yeah.
and now as we're going through this process and in different life sprints, we're
Yeah.
trying to see what the customers' reactions are, where
Yes.
they're enjoying it, where they have challenges, where we're
Yeah.
giving aha moments, where we want to deliver aha moments, and how we can actually
Yes.
deliver those. So this is
Yes.
fantastic. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
But my follow-up question to that is: you mentioned a while ago that this particular version
Yeah.
is has been updated? So I
Yes.
wanted to ask: number one, it's great that yes, you've
Yeah.
started off with that, and so it kind of gives
Yep.
both you and Matt a common reference point that this is what we want to deliver overall. You both
Yep.
agree to that, and are aligned to that. So I guess that's the biggest,
Yep.
one of the advantages that you've gotten out of this.
Hmm.
So two questions. When you look at this journey map again,
Yep.
what are the benefits that you see coming out from it? Number
Yep.
one. Number
Hmm.
two, how do you, as you mentioned, how do you make it? You said that this is not, it's a living document.
Yep.
It's still, it's still progressing. So how do you enact that progress? How does it actually happen within the two of you, yourself and Matt? I guess.
Yeah. So the
Do those questions?
benefits, yeah, for the first question, Gulam, really good ones there. So the benefits are very clear. It brings us both on the same page. Like you
Mm-hmm.
said, alignment is really very fundamental here, because we are balancing a lot of different things here. So we need to manage both customer onboarding, we need to manage the workshop itself, then we need to manage the feedback part of it, and we need to create the next sessions. So there's a lot of things that we are working on between the two of us, and having this gives us a sense of security and confidence, knowing that okay, this is what the basic version looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing is having these visual, indicators or markers here also tell us that okay, this is really the quick summary of what happens in each of those steps.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that helps
Yeah.
us also understand that okay, this is the beginning of that step, and this is the end of that step, and
Mm.
we can identify or catch certain steps that are much larger than they should be and break them down.
Okay.
So, for
Okay.
example, let me give you an example, like this part here, with creating the "How might I" question. What looks very simple is actually quite a tough and complex process, because you're going from first identifying and writing down a clear barrier that you know is the barrier that you want to overcome, and
Mm.
to really flip it and rephrase it, redesign it completely into a question that really makes sense. And people
Mm.
don't get this right on the first shot. So we've now broken this down into three different steps here, where the
Okay.
first step is you write five versions of this "How might I" question. Just write it down, five. Don't think too much about it, five different versions. And then you look at all five versions and ask yourself, okay, how does it really contribute and sync with the sort of career goals that I want to achieve. And
Okay.
then as the third step, you pick and choose and you bring it all together in one final version that you can construct from all the five that you've constructed before. So this
Okay.
way, we took one big complex step and really chunked it down into three smaller steps, which made it much more easier for people. That's number one. Number two is that it also made it very clear in terms of the instructions that we could give them.
Okay.
And there was a seamless transition from the previous step to the next step. So
Okay.
these are very clearly the benefits. And sorry, I missed your second question now, Gulam. What
So the
was it
second
again?
question was and I think what you've just described leads into that, because you said that, okay, we have this initial view of the map,
Yeah,
of the journey that we want to deliver to our customers. We're
yeah,
getting feedback from them. We're seeing challenges.
yeah,
How do you make this is your initial reference point?
yeah.
Do you have changes coming about in this, or are those changes just in conversation and actually being implemented, but not in the map itself? Does that question
So,
make sense? Or should I rephrase
yeah.
again?
No, no. I get it now. So it happens in two ways.
Mm,
Sometimes we spot something that needs to be changed that is coming from a certain customer situation, and we go ahead and try a new version in the next possible instance, which means we
mm.
directly change it in the mural board directly, and
Right.
try to see how what kind of a response it gets. And
Mm,
once we get a certain number of responses there, and once we see that, okay, it has performed well for at least, say, 3 times, then we
mm.
come back to this to the journey map document and say, okay, now you know what, this whole thing has changed.
Yeah.
And we need to make sure that this journey is updated. So that's how we go back and forth there. So unfortunately, I don't have an updated version here, or I could have demonstrated, what the change was from there to say 3 or 4 weeks after.
Can you share any one change that you've made in the new digital version which you don't
I
have,
mean,
or
this is the example that I just gave with the
okay,
how might I
okay,
question. That's a very
yeah.
good example.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I don't have the journey part of it to
Yeah,
share.
updated. Okay. But so what you're trying to, and what you're saying is that in the digital version in Figma, you actually updated that process.
Yeah, we keep updating that because this map is great to have conversations, right?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
we can have this and have some great product conversations to say, okay,
Yeah.
how do we think people are doing at this step of being welcomed back?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they really feeling well? Right after the interview, for example, how can we make that moment a bit more nicer? And how can we make it more useful, insightful? How can we give the maximum value there? So these are questions that we always are asking, keeping this journey map ahead of us, in front of
Okay.
us. And yeah, that's
You actually
basically,
kind of sorry.
yeah. No, go for it.
Do you actually have you kind of printed this out and put it up on a wall, or do you always have a conversation, a virtual conversation with the map open
We do
on the
both.
like, right?
I mean, since we're now working very remotely and Matt is traveling right now, so the remote version is easier for us. But
Okay.
whenever we're together in the same space, then we obviously use a version on the wall to see, okay, where, uh, where and how can we actually update this?
Okay, amazing. And the other part that you talked about, okay, so this is the part, this is the top row is the journey that you're trying to manage. And then
Yes.
the bottom row where you showed some of the customer feedback, some of your participants' feedback, exactly. So this is stuff that directly during the session, you're getting this feedback and you're actually putting it here to kind of reflect, is it an aha moment? Is it a challenge moment? What are their thoughts, perceptions, and feelings at these various points?
Yes, exactly. It's
And so
just
this
like
is
an
all
emotion. It's
full
like the
experience.
emotional journey moments that we are capturing here,
Yeah.
just to see, okay, where does it get awkward? Where do we
Mm.
already have to find solutions that would ease this awkwardness, for example?
So in the first version that you had of this map, you wouldn't have had any of these at the bottom, right?
No, the first version would have just been very simply, okay, this is the journey. and maybe a little bit of details here,
Hmm.
because we just didn't
Then
want
what
to
you
miss
guys
all
have
the
to do?
details. Yeah, and yeah, these are the to-dos, for
Yeah,
example.
to do for the
Here we are
team.
checking, having our own signups would be better, or can we include a QR code to unique WhatsApp groups? There are also a lot of ideas that keep popping up here to say,
Mm.
hey, how can we make this more exciting? For
Mm.
example, can we make it a
Yeah.
contest, or can we, how do we make sure that we are playing music?
Yeah.
Uh, how can we encourage, for example, more questions and iterations? So these are all like very important things that all contribute to giving a wholesome experience.
Right. Okay. This is amazing. So, and this is when did you make the first version, Rakesh? How long
Oh,
ago?
I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, earlier.
Six
I
months
don't
ago.
remember.
So if you
Yeah,
kind of zoom out
yeah,
and kind of show the whole map on the screen
yeah,
in the
sure.
first version, or a large part of it at least, yeah. In the first version, you're saying that you only had the top row.
Yeah.
Um, can you just kind of walk us through over the 6 month period what changes you've seen on this map, zoomed out?
So the biggest changes I would say,
I'm kind
yeah.
of asking you to summarize what you just said. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah, no worries. So I think the biggest changes we've actually seen are more or less reflected in the top row at different points where we notice that, hey, some steps are probably larger. We need to reduce the step size and to
Okay.
make those activities or exercises more easier to consume and easier for us to give instructions also. So
Mhm.
that is one major thing. Because of
Mhm.
that, the flow has improved. So if you see the third row here to be done, a lot of
Mhm.
those things have been implemented,
Okay.
and this has contributed to making the three sessions and also the session, entering the session and also transitioning to the support phase much more smoother. So we
Okay.
have very clear handover points, and we know what's happening at these handover points. We know the common issues that come up, and we can catch them early on before they even come up.
So
So
did
these
you
are
have
probably
more
the
of
biggest.
these to be done, let's say 3 months ago, and those have been removed, or
Yes, we had a lot of them, and now there's new ones. They're constantly being updated also, but they're all. If I were to put the third row to be done into a Kanban board, then they would be in the done column, and I would be looking for newly prioritized to dos now.
great feeling. Okay, so okay, I see what you mean. And then the customer feedback, the quotes that you have at the bottom,
Yeah.
those have been added along the way to reflect what the customer is actually thinking and feeling at those various points.
So right now we still, I mean, these are just emotional markers that we set.
Mhm.
I still wouldn't call them customer feedback. So that is something we are in the process of updating for the next version of the journey map, where we are
Mm.
capturing, we're trying to capture different feedback points at different stages of the process. And because this is also something that has helped us identify at which point do we actually introduce our feedback form? Does it make sense to
Okay.
introduce it after session three, or
Mm.
does it make sense to introduce it after the 3 week support phase after, that comes right after session three? So right now we're going for session three at the real end of session three, and we're making sure that people are really filling it out right there in the session before they leave it, because if once you let that go, it just it's just lost. People don't have
Yeah.
time, and we
Yeah.
don't want to take too much time from them also. So
Mm.
that is
I guess
something.
what would happen, if I were to think aloud about it after session three, those guys, you'll have some of those guys who've really been successful with it, and some
Yeah,
of those guys who've just been like kind of with it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
the guys who've been really successful, since they're really successful, they're not really that motivated to give that feedback anymore.
yeah,
Maybe, you
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
lose trail of them.
And a
Uh,
lot of
but
it is
they would give you
also
great
based on.
testimonials, though.
Yeah. Mhm. I'm sorry.
But they would still give you great testimonials after the 3 week period once they've implemented the steps.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's
Yeah.
okay. That's but it's also like, there is so much happening in terms of information overload in our lives that even to come to that point of saying, okay, I need to take 5 minutes to do this seems like a
Mm.
lot. And
Yeah.
since we're also not there in person, it adds to the complexity. So we
Mm.
want to be, on the one hand, very mindful of people's times, but at the same time, we still want to capture a lot of information, because this is what is going to help us improve and design things better to help people solve their challenges better. So
Yeah.
it's a classic chicken and egg situation. So we just have to constantly work on it. There's no other
Yeah.
way
Yeah. Uh, This is absolutely wonderful, Rakesh. Thank you again for sharing this map with us.
Oh,
And
my pleasure. Credit
we,
goes
we,
entirely to Matt. He's the amazing designer. He's
yeah,
really, really cool at capturing it visually. And yeah, we couldn't have done this without it.
hopefully in the next session, and it'd be great if we can have a follow-on session, maybe 3 or 6 months down the line with
Yeah,
an updated version, because
sure.
really I think the great thing is the if I wanted to summarize my understanding from what you've been saying,
Yeah,
the journey map itself helps you keep coming back to a reference point where you both know what is happening.
yes.
Since it's a small team, you already know anyway, but still, this
Yeah,
kind of, since it's visual and it's there in your face, you
yeah,
both can talk about it. It makes the making discussion points a lot more concrete.
yeah,
So you can actually do tangible stuff to specific points in that journey that you want to improve, um,
yes.
and and then you can kind of feed it with what needs to be done over there. You're both in agreement on that, and
Yeah.
you're both on the same page, and you know exactly what you guys are talking about, at which point you want to orchestrate what particular aspect of the workshop.
Yes, totally. I would say, should I just change presenter now, or would you still like
No,
to have the
that's
map?
okay. That's okay.
Uh, okay. Um, No, yes, completely agree there, Gulab. But I would also say one of the key things that the journey map does is it puts attention to detail front and center.
Hmm.
So you have so many things happening, and it's so easy to forget, or it is so easy to say, ah, okay, I missed something there, I missed something there. So with this map, we are really able to capture this attention to detail, the small things that really matter, and we are able to zoom into these small things to say, okay, how does this make sense, or how does this not make sense? How much
Hmm.
value does this small thing add to our customers? And this is
Hmm.
a very important question for us to answer, because that is where, the value is also being transported to
Yeah.
people when they are in this experience.
Hmm.
So that would be my key takeaway from any map or any journey map, in that sense, that it really brings attention to detail up to the surface.
Hmm. Okay, and that also kind of depends on what the objective is. So you're really trying to orchestrate specific moments
Yes.
in that workshop, and so you really do dive into detail on that.
Yes,
Um,
very much. Yeah.
it's really amazing. That's actually a really powerful insight. Thank you, Rakesh. That adds a lot to it. So thanks again for your time. Really wonderful. We're going to be we'll share this on YouTube. I'm sure there'll be at some point people who will have questions. There'll be
Sure.
people who will be motivated by this. I'm sure a lot of people, because there's so many people who are developing products, digital products, online products, and for them to see how you're using mapping to actually constantly keep an eye on every detail of that product and what impact it's having on the customer
Yeah.
and their level of engagement and understanding and using that product would be really, really amazing.
Yeah, really.
It's
I mean,
really
at some point, we hope to transition to some kind of interactive version of the map, where we're always like, trying to maybe add a Zapier integration or something like that. So yeah, that still needs some time. Right now, we're happy with with this. We don't want to make it too complex. But
yeah.
you're right. Yes, happy to share more if someone's interested, and feel free to reach out. You can email me. Maybe I can share it in the comments below or something.
Yes, in the comments
And
below in the YouTube video,
yeah,
once you post it, definitely we'll ask you to do that.
perfect. Awesome.
Fantastic. Thanks
Thank you
again.
for the opportunity, Gulab. It's been wonderful talking. Thanks a lot.
It's been a pleasure, likewise. And have a great day. And we'll go ahead and enjoy the monsoon weather we're having over here
Yeah,
in UAE.
yeah, go
Okay.
for it. I mean, it's been rainy here in Berlin also, so yeah, I'll do the same.
All right. Take care. Thanks
Yeah.
again. Bye bye.
Bye.